Gaurav, shall we start the session?
Yeah, sounds good. Let's get going. Okay. So good evening, everyone. It's so nice to speak to all of you. Um, as I understand, all of you are aspiring uh, candidates for the school, and you're looking to start your or get a leg up for your career by doing a management course. I think it's very important for you all to understand what it takes to be successful at work, in today's workplace. And a lot of people will tell you that hard skills are important. They're not wrong. They are extremely wrong, right, in saying that a person should know what he's talking about, should have the knowledge, should have the skills. Uh, but I'm here to talk about factors that help you in the longer run. While hard skills can get you a foot in the door and get you to certain levels within an organization, there are certain competencies that I want to focus on, which will take you all the distance. So, with that, let me quickly also introduce myself so that you guys know who is speaking to you. So, yeah, so my name is Gaurav Chattur. I am the co-founder and managing director with Catenon. I manage their business across Asia Pacific. Catenon is a global executive search firm headquartered in Madrid, in Spain, and we present across the world in more than 30 countries, and we do searches in more than 100 countries around the world, where we help companies hire mid and senior level talent. Yeah. So I have 21 years of work experience across consulting, across leadership hiring, of course, and technology. I've worked with organizations like Cognizant and Infosys. I did very interesting projects, spent some time in the US as well. I was also part of Cognizant internal strategy team. Uh, and I carry a postgraduate degree in management from ISB. Uh, Assuming that you all are from Hyderabad, you would know ISB. I also am a bachelor in engineering in electronics and telecommunications from the University of Pune. So that's a little bit about myself. Uh, let let's jump into the subject for today. Uh, let's start. Let's start with what are the difference. A lot of times people interchangeably use skills and competencies. So let's start with understanding what is a skill and what is a competency. Yeah, uh, it's an interesting distinction, and if and please feel free to put in the chat box any question that you have. Mehak, if you could just monitor the chat box and let me know.
Yeah, sure, Chatur.
Yeah. Uh, so so skills define specific activities, and these activities have been learned over a time, and they range widely in terms of complexity. Very simple. Say if you take cricket, batting is a skill, bowling is a skill. To take programming with Node.js is a skill. For a dentist, tooth extraction is a skill. For a mason, of course, masonry is a skill. Firefighting is a skill. All these can be defined as skills. Very hard skills which you learn, uh, by mostly by training, right? These are not some things that you acquire by and by. Now let's look at what are competencies. So competencies are uh, behavioral aspects that can be observed and are demonstrated in the course of a job, and they are a result of not just uh, behaviors but also abilities, skills, knowledge, motivations, and any other, like I mentioned, qualities like traits a person may possess. For example, leadership is a competency. Your ability to manage a crisis is a competency. Your ability to negotiate is a competency. Please understand, these are not at the expense of skills. So you don't have competencies without skills. You have competencies because of skills and because of a lot more other attributes, abilities that you have. So you cannot be a leader without really, so you cannot like be a captain of a cricket team without knowing about batting and bowling. You have to actually do one of them and do it pretty well to be a captain. Similarly, you cannot negotiate a deal without understanding what the deal is all about, or what is being dealt with, what is true value, what are the aspects. Say you're dealing in software, what are the features that you are going to be delivering. You really need to understand that. So, skills, competency really become therefore a summation of your skills, your knowledge that you've acquired over time, and your own abilities, which may differ from person to person, and that together gives you a bundle of competencies. Mehak, I hope you will interrupt me if there's a question. So I'll move on. Now I have identified 5 competencies that I think are extremely important for you all, or not just you all, for any professional in a modern workplace, considering the ever changing dynamics of the modern workplace also. So these competencies include cross-cultural communication, and we'll talk about each of them: networking, decision making, ownership, and growth mindset. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking about workplace of today, which has rapidly evolved in the last 4 years post the pandemic. It had already been largely impacted by effects of globalization, effects of people movement, uh, of social network, amongst many other things. But the changes that have happened in the last 4 years have been extremely pronounced. So one of the major competencies that a person needs to possess today is cross-cultural communication. And why is it important? Because teams today are truly global. Uh, yeah, so we'll come to that. I think there's a question. I would appreciate if the question is for for the slide at hand. We can cover that later once we come to the networks question. So there's a question, please share tips on how we establish and maintain networks. I'll cover that later, right? So teams today are truly global. Most of the global companies, of course, have headquarters elsewhere in the world and offices in India. But many Indian companies, many Indian companies are looking at not just catering to the Indian market, but also expanding globally because hey, we can, no? Many and Hyderabad is no stranger to these kind of companies. You guys have, on one hand, all global IT companies, including the Microsofts and the Googles of the world, with offices in Hyderabad, but also companies like Dr. Reddy's who export globally and who have offices in other parts of the world. But that's not it, right? Within India itself, we have people from various parts of the country working within the company. Now, everybody has a different backstory as an individual, but also a different cultural context from where they come. Uh, we and we can see that very easily. It takes us a little time to understand other people's food habits, language. Language we probably may not even understand at times, but their sensitivities, the festivals they enjoy, if you, for example, everywhere below the Tropic of Cancer, if you go to anybody's place, it's considered proper to remove your footwear outside and come inside the home. But in the colder part of the country, it's perfectly all right if you maintain your footwear on your feet, even when you are inside the living room, because it's obviously a different context, right? Moreover, post-pandemic, teams became virtual. Many companies still operate in a completely virtual or a hybrid mode. And even if everybody is working from office, the teams are distributed across geographies. What this essentially does is there is little or no face-to-face time. It's easier to understand a person over a cup of tea, coffee, or sometimes a smoke or a drink, if you may. But it's very difficult to understand a person over a call. Look at this situation, for example. Uh, I know there are 24 participants on this call, but I can't see you, so I don't really know whether you are able to hear me, whether you're well, I hope you are able to hear me, whether you're really understanding what I'm saying, because I am not able to see you, and therefore I am urging Mehak from the school to please tell me if there is any question, because I have no clue what's going on. So the onus lies on me to implore you guys to tell me if you have any questions, right? Every now and then. And we do have some questions coming up in the chat box. So let me open those. So you can hear me. And of course, yeah, thanks for mentioning that again, Mehak. Uh, Thanks, Swati. I'm very glad to hear that you're able to understand. Yeah, but that's an aspect of the modern day workplace where you are Zooming or Google Meeting or meeting people on Teams or Google Meets every now and then. So it's very difficult to read emotions. And therefore, it's extremely important to have even a higher level of emotional quotient to understand sentiment, moods, understand if somebody really needs help, or if they are stuck somewhere. It's so the whole aspect of cross-cultural communication therefore becomes a extremely vital competency for successful professional life. Okay, so so there are two questions around examples of high and low EQ. One is, what would be an example of high and low EQ, and how do people develop higher EQ? Thanks, Swati and Ronnie. Let me try and answer that. You sense, so say you're a team lead and you sense that a high performer has dropped in performance of late and is uh, very short in the conversations and very how do I say, conservative with the time they spend on the call. What would you do? So a low EQ person would say, you know what, this person is slacking. We really need to have a feedback call and give that person a piece of our mind. A higher EQ person would say, you know what, I don't know what's really going on with say Swati, but I can tell you one thing: Swati used to be a very good performer. Let me do one thing. Let me set some time aside from our regular work-related calls to just chat about what's going on and how is she finding work. And most often we realize that people are fighting some problems, either it is at work or in personal lives. And once they open up about it, they feel lighter. By no means uh, we are equipped to solve people's personal problems. But if it's work related, we could suggest alternatives. If it's interpersonal situations, then we could suggest way ahead. Now, how does a person develop EQ is a very difficult competency to just acquire overnight. But one of the best things to do is to listen and perceive and not draw conclusions or judgments before you've heard the person. The other thing is, most of us are taught to think in a certain way because just cultural. It stems from the fact that we come from certain uh, region of the country, certain family background, certain class in terms of societal class, etc. Now, if you allow your version of truth or what you believe is truth to be the only truth out there, then you're never going to be open to other ideas. And therefore, you're going to be very close to understanding other people. So if you're ready to really listen to the other guy and not necessarily speak, then you will understand that, hey, you know what? Many simultaneous truths can exist out there. And while I may be in love with the truth that I am taught or I believe in, uh, I'm open to hearing what the other person has to say. And it starts from there, and you build on that. But of course, work needs to still happen. So you need to be able to influence people into understanding that there is a larger objective that we need to accomplish despite our differences. There's another question that's come up. How do we balance being empathetic and a bit rigorous in terms of getting work done? Yeah, it's exactly what I was coming at. Uh, Being empathetic is natural. If somebody's so one needs to understand the level of empathy a person needs. If somebody's had a personal bereavement or hospitalization, that's not a time to talk about work at all. There's a time to say, okay, you know what, this is important. Why don't just take your time and take a few days off or come back when you better. But if it's a momentary thing, it's a less important, less serious aspect, then you need to first hear the person out, understand, say you feel, you understand, and you appreciate the problems. However, then you have to recalibrate and say, hey, you know what, while all that is understood and I really feel for you, I need you to refocus on the deliverable, on the work, on the project, whatever the case may be, because we really need you to contribute here. Uh, I'm very happy to have a conversation whenever you need, but right now, this needs to be prioritized. But hey, you know what? You have to be very sensitive. If somebody's child is sick and you tell them to prioritize work, then you're going to look like a demon. So be careful with what priorities you're asking a person to exercise. Great. Moving on. A great example of where how cross-cultural sensitivity or communication has become so important is our own team. So I hope all of you will recognize this as the SRH team. Aiden Makram, who's a South African, is the captain. And we've got people from all over India. Abdul Samad is from Kashmir. Mayank Agarwal is from Bangalore. Nitish Reddy is a local boy. Rahul Tripathi is from Pune. Glenn Phillips is from New Zealand. Henrik Klassen again is from uh, South Africa, and led by and also this team is coached by Daniel Vettori. Now imagine people coming from such diverse personal backgrounds. They don't even understand the accents. Completely different kettle of fish, and you want to get the best out of everyone. You really need to invest time in understanding everyone and everyone understanding you if you would lead a team like this. Okay. Now we'll move to the second competency, Networking. Networking is real. Not so a lot of people confuse networking with social networks. I'm not referring to that. I don't believe social networks is much to do with networking. It's to it just helps you communicate with each other easily. But do you really understand the person? Well, it's just a tool. So the understanding is still offline. Where we're talking about real connections, where you really know a person, where you can say that you can really rely on the person in case of a need, where you have the ability to connect a person with another person, and where you can really, if when needed, find out or think through who can really help you by joining the dots. Hey, maybe I don't know anybody directly here, but I know that this guy must know somebody there who could probably connect with somebody and who could help me. I cannot stress how important it is to network. I see there's a question. I'm going to stop. Okay, this is with regard to the last slide. I'm going to just complete this slide and then go back to the cross-cultural communication piece. But there was a question on this. Please share how tips on how we establish and maintain networks. So one of the easiest way to establish and maintain network is to help people. If there is anybody who needs help, of course, legitimate help, lawful help, don't cross the line of law or of company co company code of conduct, etc. Don't share privileged information. But within in the realm of things, if there's anything you can do to help people in your network, that's where networking starts. A lot of people confuse networking with exchanging visiting cards, having drinks and dinner, and a lot of that. But that's not really networking. That's speed dating at best. I'm talking about very serious networking where you actually help out people and you help and keep helping people so much that when you ask for anything, your entire network is standing behind you to see how they can help you. And that is what I classify as networking, where you really build such strong human connections that come a day you need something or the slightest query that you have, there are at least 10 people answering it at once. Yes. I just shared a very good example of how to build network. Let me give you a personal example. During when pandemic wave one struck, uh, our work life was anyways deeply affected. We were actually completely we came to a standstill. And instead of sitting at home and watching Netflix or anything, I decided that I'm going to use my entire time to try and help people. So I was answering calls for people who needed oxygen cylinders, to ICU beds, to ventilators, to medicines like remdesivir and tocilizumab, to ambulances, oxygen concentrators, etc. And there were random strangers who came about. Now I just kept doing it for I think it was a month and a half till the impact of the wave one subsided. I didn't do it because I was really looking at networking, you know. But it turned out that I made an enormous network as a result of that. I was really doing my duty towards my city and my country and humanity in general. But I sowed enough goodwill that years later people remember and help. So the real place where networking starts is a genuine feeling of helping people around you. Okay, now I'm going to answer Mehak Agarwal's question. As we know, cross-cultural communication is a boon for teams and companies, but what are the biggest hurdles that we are facing in cross-cultural communication, and how does one solve for these problems? Is it more productive than face-to-face interaction? I don't understand what is more productive, but face-to-face, nothing can replace face-to-face interaction. Everything comes second best. That's clear. What are the biggest hurdles? I think people's ability to connect and understand the cultural, the emotional, the gender, the positional context of others, in effect, the context of others, is the biggest problem. So if you are a parent and you could, then you would really need. It's very easy to understand the context of another parent. But if you're not a parent, you may wonder why does this person at work have to switch off at 6 sharp? And if you've not bothered to really ask about the personal life, you would never discover that it's not really that the person wants to slack, but it's really that the person needs to pick up their kid from maybe the kid is learning a sport and needs to be picked up, and being late is not an option. So just generally understanding the context of the other person, people do not invest too much time in that. In fact, one of the first things that I requested Badruka School of Management to tell me first before I spoke to you all is I need to know the audience, I said, because I want to talk about things that are relevant to you. And I would have loved to know each one of you personally to be able to, have examples which are even more relevant. It's extremely important for you to understand who is on the other side of a conversation, because then you can see it's really trying to find more genuine interest in another human being that's going to solve for it. Okay, so many of you would have seen this character. So that's a very good example of networking, where a guy who knows a guy and who can help you, right? This is from the Breaking Bad series that you guys may have seen. Yeah, absolutely. India does face a lot of problems in cross-cultural communication, but not because of the diversity, but because people are sometimes in a hurry to understand the person. But it's very difficult to generalize India. I've seen people who are extremely adept at communication in general and cross-cultural as well, because they're ready to invest time in understanding the other person. Diversity does not mean problems. A lot of people mistake diversity for or differences between people as problems. I look at it the other way. It's an opportunity to learn more. The question is, are you genuinely interested? Right? Okay. Coming to the next competency, decision making. Now, decision making needs to be objective. A lot of people make decisions which are very subjective, which are riddled by biases, where they think only of past situations while making decisions. They don't see the current situation as is. Your ability to isolate a decision for what it is and not let surrounding factors affect it, make your decision making objective. It's it always helps at workplace to have data-driven decision making, because then not only are you making decisions objectively, you're making decisions which have clear impact. So between two decisions which can be correct, you want to make the decision which is more correct, which means which has a higher impact, which means and there's a way to measure it. That is data-driven decision making, where your decision making is circumspect, means you are not thinking only of the immediate impact in the local area of the decision, but also what are the impact it will have in adjoining things. For example, if you fire people, yes, you will reduce cost, and that may be the requirement for that decision. But what is going to happen to the morale of the people? What is going to happen to your ability to hire people again when things look up? What is going to happen to your employer brand, and how are your customers going to perceive it? And yes, even if after taking all of this, if you need to let go of people, what is the best way to do it so that there is the least impact on all of this? And that's just one decision making. I'm talking about a harsh example. There could be many others. While a lot of people can make decisions, very few people can make it fast because they don't have a framework that they can rely on and say that, hey, my decision making was objective, data driven, circumspect, and since I've considered all the factors that are there to be considered, I have all the data at my hand, I can make a quick decision. People drag decisions because they're afraid of making decisions, but that's not what helps in life. You have to make, in work life, you have to make decisions at a rapid pace. And while making the decision, you are not swayed by emotions, you are balanced. Again, many leaders in work life fail because they are emotional in decision making. It does not mean that emotions don't take a part in decision making. It means that emotions should not overwhelm you while taking decisions, and you're completely at the mercy of those, right? Now, what is a great example of a leader who can make decisions? I think none better example than our friend MS. Uh, in I played a lot of cricket and I've followed a lot of cricket. I find his decision making ability far greater than any other ability he has, and far greater than any other decision making ability I've seen on the field of cricket. Very balanced while he makes the decisions, and of course, cricket is a sport where you have to make rapid decisions, so very fast as well. So if there are no questions on decision making, I'll move on to the next one. Ownership. Single most important attribute that you can possess. Unfortunately, as you know, over the 22 years that I've worked, I've seen this aspect of uh, you know competency drop down most significantly. Somehow, people no longer think of their task as being something that they need to be proud of. People think of jobs that to just go through, and irrespective of whether result is achieved or not, they are very comfortable in that state. While that's okay to get by, that's not okay to become a leader, or that's not okay for your professional success. And if there's one single thing that you need to incorporate and ensure that you have to differentiate you from all your peers and all your competition, is ownership of tasks. What do I mean by ownership? Very simply, I would say that you have high ownership if I can assign you a job and consider it done the moment I assign it to you. If you are the person where as soon as your boss assigns you something, he can be very happy saying that, hey, this is done. Or will you be a person who will always cite problems? Why a thing cannot be done? There are two types of people. People who will always find a problem for every solution, and people will always find a solution for every problem. And they are present in all workplaces in abundance. Be the guy who finds the problem. Find a solution for every problem. Don't be the person who finds the problem. Because no task in this world exists without problems. If you are the person who will find problems with every solution or problems everywhere, or why a work cannot be done, then you are not a person who has ownership. You are not a person who can be relied upon. You should become a person who can deliver a task irrespective of how many problems come about. Really, you need to regard your job, your task, your work as your baby. Nobody needs to tell you how, you know, that you need to take care of it. If you were a parent and you had a baby, the neighbor does not need to come and tell you the baby is sick and you need to take care of it, or the baby has needs to be fed. It's time. You do it because you know, and that you are the ultimate uh, parent, owner of the child. No better example comes to my mind uh, than a military man when it comes to ownership. I have uh, Captain Vikram Batra, who is very famous uh, for winning India back, a very important feature in the Kargil War. And this is two very important features in the Kargil War, one after the other. And he actually laid down his life while capturing the second peak. He understood that the job, the task needed to be done, no matter what the cost is. It's well, while I don't intend to ask you to lay down your lives when doing a task, but you know what I mean. You should have that kind of commitment that your task is a reflection of your identity. Your ability to perform will determine how you are going to be known in the professional work life. So if you're a person who can be relied upon, irrespective of how difficult the task is, you will always succeed in professional. I'll just pause for any questions. Moving on to the next, and a very important competency is a growth mindset. Now, I want to make a distinction between the two mindsets that exist. One is a fixed mindset, and one is a growth mindset. Now, let's talk about a fixed mindset first. A fixed mindset person thinks that abilities, intelligence, etc., are all static things. So if I'm not able to solve a math problem today, I'll never be able to solve it 10 days later, 100 days later, 1,000 days later. If I cannot play tennis today, I will not be able to play tennis tomorrow, next year, 10 years later. So this kind of a person avoids any sort of challenge, always says things are too hard. Also expects, these kind of people are always very entitled. They want reward. No, the company should pay me 30% hike because that's the industry norm. No, but what value did you add? No. Value and all is okay. 30% hike should happen. So they will not take feedback. These kind of people never take feedback well. They are always complaining about something else. Problem was with the AC was too cold in my office. Computer that they gave me was the U was not working. This guy who sat beside me used to sing some songs. Uh, the whatever, the coffee in the cafeteria is not good. They give somebody else a promotion. Everything else but themselves is a problem. And they're always threatened by somebody else's success. That's a fixed mindset guy. There's a question which has come up. How can we cultivate ownership in the employees? That's a good question. I will first finish the mindset bit and come back to this. Yeah. Now let's look at the growth mindset person. The growth mindset person always believes abilities, intelligence, anything, any attribute can be developed. They're not ready to say that if I can't solve a math problem today, I'll not be able to. They'll say, okay, fine. If I can't solve it today, let me find out. If I can't solve a Sudoku today, I'll learn how to solve a Sudoku, but I'll get there. If I cannot play tennis today, no problem. I'll practice hard. I'll learn how to play tennis. I'll get a good coach. I'll watch videos online. I will improve my fitness, but I'll get there. So these kind of people, therefore, are always ready to embrace challenge. So they are the people who are ready to really grow, no? Take on new challenges, take on new work, do things which they have not done before. They have the ability to train their brain. They don't cower under something being difficult. They in fact take it as they start enjoying something being difficult. They believe that effort can lead to them becoming masters of something. Therefore, they are always open to feedback as well. You know what? So that there are going to be many of you who are hearing this. Some of you will really, or many of you, I hope, will really say, hey, you know what? These 5 competencies that Gaurav talked about seem like something I can learn from. If I am able to implement these, the chances of me succeeding are going to be very, very high. Let me make a note of them. Others are going to say, a lot of gyan, it's not going to be of any use because it's already decided what is going to happen to me. The growth mindset person is going to be inspired by other success. These are the guys who say, oh man, what a autobiography. What a beautiful this thing. Okay, what a story. They're not afraid to fail because failure is one step at a time for them. It's just one step. It's not the final destination. Fixed mindset guy is very, very afraid of failure because they'll have to face themselves. They don't like that. Right? So a great example, a very contemporary great example that comes to my mind for a growth mindset person is this character from this movie. I'm sure most of you have seen it. 12th fail. And the caption says it all, no? Haar nahi manunga. I will not accept defeat. And if you don't accept defeat, you will not be defeated. Right. So there is a question that has come up. How does decision making impact ownership for a manager? How does one cultivate ownership in themselves? Okay. So there are 2 questions around ownership, but before that, if there's a question on mindset, I'll address that and I'll go back to ownership and any other questions that you may have. Not so. Jagdish Chandar wants to know how can we cultivate ownership in employees. Yeah, really. See, ownership has 2 aspects, right? If you're a business owner or a manager or team lead, whatever, right? You need to understand that ownership will not come if you keep giving directions for everything. You need to trust people to take decisions, to define how they want to work, to ask you when they have problems, but not really micromanage. There's going to be zero ownership. Zero. If you micromanage and tell people to do everything. So really what I would do as a manager is say, hey, you know what, this is the objective. This is what you need to, these are the actions that you need to take, and this is the objective. You let me know if you have a problem with anything. I'm here to help you. Your failure is my failure. Your success is my success. I really want you to succeed. So think of me as on your team. but go about your own business. So decision making does impact ownership of a manager. So inability to take decisions is going to reduce the ownership, like I said. Uh, how does one cultivate immense pride in the work you do? You should you should almost think of work as a representation of yourself. So if I did a shoddy job at today's presentation, that will reflect upon me, Gaurav Chattur, as an individual. And if you guys go home unhappy after this session, I'll be unhappy with myself. That's going to impact me personally. So I better do a great job at making this presentation and delivering this content to you guys, despite the media challenges that I can't see you face to face, and that it's always difficult to communicate virtually. So taking great pride in your task. This task is mine. It represents me. Excellence in this is excellent. My excellence. Failure at this is my failure. That's really ownership. I will not let people down. I will not let myself down. That's ownership. What role is expected from management? Ashok Agarwal asks. Management schools in cultivating these competencies. Really, management schools don't cultivate these competencies. Okay, I'll be very honest. They can help you orient towards these competencies. Management schools give you frameworks to learn management, really. Management of marketing, management of operations, general management, entrepreneurship, finance. To some extent, they will have orientation sessions, but it's really up to the individual to cultivate these competencies. I didn't go to ISB to cultivate these competencies. I got to ISB because I had some of these competencies. I don't expect any school to teach. This is very personal. Of course, a lot of knowledge, abilities that you pick up, exposure that you have to other human beings and to faculty and to cases teach you about this. But don't expect management school to teach you about these competencies. Happy to answer any more questions. How are we doing on time, Mehak? I think we have 5 more minutes now.
Yeah, we still have 5 more minutes with us.
Sure.
Sangrila, you raised your hand. Do you have any question to ask?
Maybe that hand was just tired of sitting down. By the way, humor is also a competency, yeah? And sometimes a life-saving one. Great. If there are no other questions, lovely speaking to you. There is a question. Could you help us, Bhavana J? Could you help us with one of or two habits which we can inculcate in our daily lives to become a competent person in this fast-growing world? Wow, that's a lot. It's a lot to ask. But generally, one, become very aware. Don't read news in short forms in over social media. Read news in totality. Try to really understand the subject. Yeah. Second is, like I said, spend time speaking to people, not over social media, face to face, over a conversation, or a call. Uh, yeah, and try to also minimize this habit of looking at social media every 5 minutes. Very distracting from what the real world is. So yeah, I think these two, of course, and develop one healthy habit every day. Develop one healthy habit which is part of your routine every day. So it may be a walk, it may be a run, a sport, dancing, yoga, whatever rocks your boat. But extremely important to keep aside everything else, engage in physical activity, freshen up your mind, so that you're ready for the day. Extremely important. That's all right. My hand is raised very often by mistake. So Sanjay, nothing to feel apologetic about. I'm glad, Bhavna, that you found this useful. I wish I could hear and see you guys in person. I genuinely miss the human connect, which unfortunately Zoom does not offer. But I wish you all the very best in whatever you decide to do further. Sincerely hope that you've learned from this. If you if we bump into each other at any stage in your careers or in our lives, and if I were to hear from any of you that this session helped you even one bit years down the line, I'll be the most happy individual out there. So thank you so much. Thanks, Mehak, for having me today, and all the best to everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gaurav, for taking out time today and definitely sharing your insights. I'm sure students have definitely learned great insights from your experience. For everybody's information, at BSM, our second round of application deadline is 25th of March, and admissions are open right now. I've also shared the link of the website. You can go to that website and check our courses and the program. And this is the contact information. If you want to reach out for any query, you can anytime reach out to us. And thank you so much for joining us today. It was great having you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Gaurav.